2 weeks ago, Donald Trump said he was coming to Colorado in 2 weeks. No sign of him yet, as he continues to make false claims about a very real problem in Aurora, a Venezuelan gang. New details tonight about the viral video at the center of those claims. We'll go live to Grand Junction, where election denier Tina Peters could get anything from no prison time to more than a decade. A project in Jefferson County to open up the world of yoga to every student.
It was like you're giving away your stress.
And it's the best name of any of your word of thanks micro-giving campaigns in years. Butt Savers. Goodness knows y'all have saved my butt a time or two. Let's save some others. Tonight on Next. He was supposed to be here by now. 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump said he was coming to Aurora within 2 weeks. No Trump visit's been scheduled. But he continues to push false claims that Aurora has been taken over by Venezuelan gangsters. Police and city leaders say the gang's actual presence is small, limited to a few properties where they've fought each other and intimidated neighbors. Trump talks a lot about this one video played on repeat on Fox News, 6 men with guns in an apartment complex. Police have now identified all 6 and have not confirmed that any belong to the gang. Kelly Rinke explains how investigators tracked them down.
The video of armed men at an apartment complex in Aurora played over and over again on cable news. Police now know the 6 men who approached that apartment door. Investigators issued warrants for all of them. Only 2 so far were available through a records request. Court documents say a police informant told officers they saw armed men run into apartment 204 after a shooting outside the complex. In that apartment is where APD found a disassembled rifle hiding in an oven. Warrants say that rifle is the same one fired during the shooting that killed Oswaldo Jose Tabion Araujo. It's also similar to the one in that viral clip, which was captured just 10 minutes before Araujo was shot outside. Right now, the group is only facing burglary and menacing charges for this incident captured on surveillance. Police say 6 men, 5 with handguns and 1 with a rifle, knocked on 2 apartments and threatened residents. Records show what those residents told officers. The men pointed guns at them, and they were scared for their lives. They said the men did not talk directly to them, only to each other, and they left shortly after. Those 2 apartments are different than apartment 204, where police found that rifle. A month later, APD announced it identified some in the video. Records show, in addition to the informant, another person at the complex that night helped police identify their suspects. So warrants have been issued for all 6 men. Only 1 is in custody. At this time, none of them have been connected to a gang or that shooting that happened that night. APD says there could be additional charges once the investigation into that shooting is complete.
So for transparency's sake, this is literally something that we're working on every day, requesting records, trying to confirm accounts because there's so many swirling claims.
This is all happening in real time. That last warrant was issued this morning. Only 2 of the warrants have been made available to the public. We've asked for copies of the others. Some are suppressed. We're not sure about that 6th one yet.
Kelly Rinke, thank you. Remember the Denver schools parent who sued after the district wouldn't put up straight pride flags? Judge threw that lawsuit out. This guy, Nathan Feldman, says his 3rd graders had their constitutional rights violated by seeing pride flags in school at Slavens. A court ruled that the flags were protected government speech, pointed to a school board resolution backing school displays supporting LGBTQ students as part of the district's curriculum. The court also ruled Feldman could not prove that seeing pride flags harmed his kids beyond, quote, exposure to a message that doesn't represent their views. Colorado's best-known election denier, former county clerk Tina Peters, could trade in her ankle bracelet for prison tomorrow. She admits that she let outsiders into her voting systems in an unsuccessful search for election rigging. And even after her recent felony conviction, she still showed no remorse. She attacks the prosecutors on her podcast, calls the judicial process wickedness. Bold strategy. Tomorrow we see if it pays off for her. Our Mark Salinger joins us from Mesa County, where the former Republican clerk and conspiracy theory folk hero of a sort will learn her fate in the morning. Mark?
Yeah, Kyle, Tina Peters has continued to proclaim her innocence in that month and a half since she was convicted of 4 felony charges, even showing off that ankle monitor in front of her podcast online. Now, we'll find out tomorrow what she is sentenced to. She's facing up to roughly 2 decades in prison, though she could walk out of here facing no prison time at all.
I'll have remarks later. Thank you.
The last time we saw Tina Peters in court, she walked out a convicted felon.
We, the jury, find the defendant Tina Peters guilty of count number 1, attempt to influence a public servant.
The jury found the former Mesa County clerk guilty of 7 of 10 counts stemming from a 2021 security breach of her election equipment. In the month and a half since the ruling, she's been anything but remorseful.
Until they either kill me or put me in prison, I'm going to keep speaking out about the injustice.
Prison could very well come tomorrow. Prosecutors say she granted conspiracy theorists illegal access to voting systems in her county as she searched for proof of voter fraud. Peters has falsely claimed that Denver-based Dominion voting systems rigged the election against Donald Trump. She's peddled unfounded lies about the 2020 election since her arrest. Trump allies like My Pillow guy Mike Lindell have helped fund her legal defense.
The judge is going to have a very difficult job in this case because we have a person with no prior felony convictions, no prior misdemeanor convictions. It's a nonviolent crime, first-time offender, but it's a defendant who has been absolutely without remorse and, in fact, quite arrogant about her conduct.
9 News legal expert Scott Robinson points out there is no minimum mandatory sentence in this case. While some of the felony charges she's been convicted of carry the potential of more than a decade in prison, the judge could also impose a far more lenient sentence.
The judge could impose anything from straight probation to probation with a county jail sentence as a condition of probation to a felony conviction prison term.
We asked Peters last year if she thought she'd spend time in prison. Even then, she never seemed to acknowledge that potential reality.
What do you think the chances are that you and or Donald Trump are in prison a year or two from now?
Well, I'll tell you, if I thought I was going to prison, I would probably be on the beach somewhere, but relaxing. It's just like with Donald Trump's indictment. My indictment has nothing to do with the facts.
Again, a jury disagreed with Tina Peters there that her indictment had nothing to do with facts and convicted her of 7 of the 10 counts that she was facing. Her sentencing is scheduled to begin tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. here in Grand Junction. Tina Peters has been asking for prayers online, and Kyle saying that the deep state is still out to get her.
This is going to be fascinating tomorrow, Mark, because people can speak to the judge on her behalf before sentencing, and they could get up there and say, Tina Peters is a nice lady, go easy. Or they could get up there and say, hey, judge, up yours.
Exactly, and then it's up to the judge to decide who to believe on that. Again, she could do something just like probation. The judge could say, hey, you don't even have to spend any time in prison. Or in theory, she's facing several decades in prison. We'll find out tomorrow what happens.
Could be wild. Mark Salinger for us in Grand Junction. Thank you, sir. So a day before Tina Peters is sentenced for tampering with Dominion voting systems, a newly unsealed brief in a criminal case against Donald Trump shows that his own allies called those conspiracy theories about Denver-based Dominion, quote, bleeping nuts. The unsealed brief by special counsel Jack Smith lays out in the clearest language yet the criminal case against Trump. It reinforces what was already known about these claims that Dominion rigged the election. Trump insiders did not believe those election rigging claims while they were telling them to the public. The unsealed brief says Trump tried to get RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel to promote the claim that Dominion rigged the vote in Michigan. McDaniel refused, telling Trump that she had been informed that the claim was bleeping nuts. Get comfortable. We're going to talk about colonoscopies. At this moment, I hear the dinner forks clattering onto plates across Colorado. We are not going to talk about the details of the procedure. We are going to talk about how a nonprofit is using them to save Coloradans' lives. 225 straight weeks into your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign, we have never had a name as good as Butt Savers. This is a project of the nonprofit Salud Family Health, where most of their patients can't afford colonoscopies. So the staff there started pooling their own personal money to essentially provide colonoscopy scholarships, a way to create a sliding scale that makes sure that people are not delaying or skipping a procedure that can save their life. Because colorectal cancer caught early, highly treatable. Caught late, it's a killer. But when Salud staff was seeing patients far enough along that they had symptoms, people who needed that screening soon, those patients would often disappear for months while they saved up money for the procedure. So that's why the folks at Salud started Butt Savers, to reduce the out-of-pocket costs for the patients they serve from Commerce City up to Weld County out onto the Eastern Plains. The docs there say that 1 in 60 screenings legitimately saves a life. I would like to be able to say that we, together, saved at least one life. Scan that QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. We'll send you that link to donate. Your $13 million in micro-giving proves that even $5 adds up fast. So as always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling. And more than 3,000 of you have signed up to simplify your giving by making a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. You set it up once, we split your donation among every nonprofit we feature. That's allowed us to start your recent micro-giving campaigns with $23,000 in donations per week. The thousands suing Xcel over the Marshall Fire learned that they're all going to have to do it together at once.
We're trying to create human connection, and the best way to do that is through breath and movement together.
Hundreds of students of all abilities moving together as one. That's next. About 4,000 people, businesses, and local governments want Xcel Energy to pay for the Marshall Fire. A judge is trying to wrangle the majority of those claims down into 2 trials. Earlier this week, judge in Boulder County ruled that one trial will decide whether Xcel should be on the hook for starting that fire and causing all that property damage. Xcel's repeatedly denied responsibilities, but investigators say an Xcel power line was the most likely starting point for one of the 2 ignition spots. So if Xcel's found liable in that first trial, then all the damages would be decided in a second trial. The judge says everybody's in on these 2 trials unless they can provide some reason their case should be tried separately. Bringing meteorologist Kathy Sabin, hot one.
And elevated fire danger, Kyle. A weather headline today. We have red flag warnings out as temperatures soar into the 80s. A record 89 today, eclipsing the old record of 88 set back in 2005. Current temperatures are still above the average of 72, but we're tracking a weak front that will be approaching from the north. 24-hour temperature swing 10 to 20 degrees warmer this hour than this time yesterday, and extremely dry. Red flag warnings out for elevated fire danger ahead of a cool front that will bring temperatures back down into the 70s tomorrow. We're tracking the wind, which could gust to about 35 and 40 miles per hour over northern Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska. We'll know the front is here tomorrow morning with a wind shift and an increase in those winds from Denver out across northeastern Colorado. We'll look for that cool front around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. Temperatures this evening will trend downward out of the 80s into the 60s by about midnight tonight. A cooler day tomorrow ahead of a warmer Friday and another possible record high Saturday. Broncos take on the Raiders at 2:05 on Sunday with sunshine and a kickoff temperature of 81 degrees.
When we talk about Colorado's historic heat records being broken, how sure are we that some pioneer in the 1800s had a good hand on climatology?
And we can feel better in our mind and our body. We're better people.
Yoga doesn't have to be all handstands and bendy tricks. An adaptive yoga program gets everyone involved. Today is one of the hottest October days Denver's seen since 1892. Tonight's next question comes from Jim, wanting to know how Denver's century-old weather numbers were gathered back in the olden days. Let's let the experts handle this one.
We've got potential records in the forecast for the Denver area over the next few days, and some of those records date back to the late 1800s, which brings up the question, where exactly have those climate records officially been kept for us in Denver over the last 150 plus years? And it's a really important story to tell. I'll explain why in just a second. First of all, between 1872 and 1949, at a bunch of different sites downtown, that's where the official climate records were kept for us in Denver. At one point, it was at the Denver Post Office. At one point, it was at Larimer and 16th. At another point, it was at the Boston Building at 17th and Champa. Various sites downtown, we had the official climate sites kept there. Then, at the old Stapleton Airport between January the 1st of 1950 until February of 1995. That's where our official climate records were kept in Denver between, again, 1950 and 1995. And DIA between March 1995 until today is where our official climate records are kept, of course, right now. That said, That's a fair bit of geography. You've got about a 25-mile differential here, and in Denver, of course, 25 miles can make all the difference. So here's a better way to maybe think about it when it comes to those climate records. Since July 1994, Denver International Airport leans a touch warmer than Central Park, the old Stapleton Airport. But if we were to factor in downtown Denver, certainly now, because of the urban heat island, leans a bit warmer. But there's no doubt about it, Denver's climate history, it's a little bit messy, varying from downtown Denver to the airport and in between.
Yoga class, it can be intimidating, let alone that hot yoga, which is apparently only for attractive people. But even the most basic poses can seem out of reach for people who have limited mobility. And that's why a nonprofit worked with 400 students with different abilities, as well as their care providers, to prove that yoga is for everyone.
Raise your hand if you experience stress. I saw a lot of hands go right up. We all experience stress, and it's not just in our minds, but it's in our bodies. Today we had over 400 Jeffco students coming together to move through yoga. Take a deep breath and reach your arms open. Move through yoga brings adaptive yoga practices to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as physical disabilities.
I do yoga myself. I was paralyzed 8 years ago after a hiking accident, so I'm an athlete at heart, and I want others to know what we can do in a wheelchair.
Yes, look at that smile, and bring it on back. So good.
And hopefully they'll take away some of the movements, some of the breathing techniques.
Reach forward, inhale.
We stretched. It was like you're giving away your stress.
Reach, reach, reach. Everyone was participating and helping each other. So we're increasing that vibe of joy and selflessness.
It's like you're just with a bunch of friends and just doing what is best for you.
And when we can feel better in our mind and our body, we're better people out there in the world.
I feel fantastic. Much better.
And we're trying to create human connection, and the best way to do that is through breath and movement together.
It's like you're giving away your stress. Isn't that a good endorsement, Marilyn? Thank you. Your feedback next. This week's Word of Thanks Microgiving Project benefits Butt Savers, perfectly named program of Salud Family Health that subsidizes the cost of life-saving colonoscopies. Because when patients delay that care while they save up money, those lost months can result in lost lives. I love that Salud's staff at this nonprofit started this with their own donations because they felt so strongly about it. And now patients from Denver's northern suburbs up to northern Colorado, out to the eastern plains can all take advantage of their subsidized rates on screening. This is life-saving stuff. Scan the code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to join me and a bunch of other Coloradans in donating. You'll see a link to give to just this week's cause, or you can sign up to make a monthly donation to support each Word of Thanks nonprofit. And a quick reminder, a debate here in Colorado's closest congressional race next Tuesday, October 8th. Next presents the race for Congress. Democratic Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo and Republican challenger Gabe Evans, they debate at 6 in place of Next. Feedback tonight from Steve, who says, this wasn't the stupidest, dumbest show I've seen in my lifetime, but it was in the top 2. I hope we're number 1 as well.